very excited. We're starting our Sermon on the Mount series. And this is extremely exciting. It really is, because in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus lays out for us exactly what he expects, the kind of righteousness that he expects out of his followers. And so there's no question, there's no ambiguity. He makes it clear for us. And it's an amazing thing. And when he laid this out, it was an entirely new way of thinking. Because it's kind of like, have you ever seen the movies Crocodile Dundee or the sequel, Crocodile Dundee 2? In the movie, the whole concept was that there was a journalist, and she wanted to write a story about a guy in Australia that survived a crocodile attacks, and she goes down there with him, and he's just amazing. She brings him back to New York, and the whole thing is how he's kind of a fish out of water, a guy from the bush in Australia in New York City. And in the sequel, they flip it. They're actually pretty fun movies. And he goes from New York and has all these drug dealers chase him to Australia, to the bush in Australia. And then they're chasing him around down there with all the crocs and everything else. Okay. And the whole idea is, it was just, a fish out of water kind of concept. And this had to be how the first people who heard Jesus sharing the Sermon on the Mount had to feel. Because he was not just telling them more of what they already knew, he was teaching them to think in a completely different way than what they were used to. And it was an amazing thing. See, because religion for the Jews, was only what they got from the Pharisees and from the scribes, right? And that consisted mostly of what? Rules. Right. I've talked about this before. In the beginning of the Garden of Eden, how many rules were there? One. And how many were blown? One. Okay. So then we got the Ten Commandments, right? And then Moses, the Mosaic Law, had 613. How about this one? Is that more? 613 rules. And then the rabbis got a hold of it, and they increased it to over 10,000 rules. And all of it was about keeping rules. But the problem is, it was all external. It was all what people did. It was all about your activities and your actions. And so Jesus took it beyond that. Because if all you're learning about is stuff that's external, and all you're hearing is stuff from the scribes and the Pharisees, you might hear something a little different from Pharisee Moshe over there than Pharisee Saul over there. It creates some natural questions. And so some of the questions that folks might have asked are things like, am I good enough to get into the kingdom of heaven? Am I righteous enough to get into the kingdom of heaven? And what do I need to do to be righteous enough? And so, of course, again, this is an external thing, right? What do I have to do? What do I have to show? What do I have to exhibit? And it was kind of like all about meeting the minimum standard or exceeding it. How many of you guys have to get a test tomorrow? All right, what's your test in, Riley?
Psychology and economics.
Ooh, psychology and economics. Now, the one in psychology in particular, we're talking about that. Do you feel like your grade on that test is going to accurately reflect all that you are? No. Obviously, you're not going to do good on the test. That's what you're saying. Rock, you said you got in finance?
Yes.
Do you feel like your grade on that test is going to encapsulate all that makes Brock?
I don't think it covers broadology. Let's see, all honesty, no.
Okay. And that would be probably the same answer from all of us. See, how you do on a test? Okay, I remember I've taken many tests, and it seemed like oftentimes the ones I did the best on were the ones I walked in, and I'm not recommending this. The ones I walked in and said, "We got a test today," and I immediately began fasting and praying. And oftentimes, I had a regular prayer. Oh,
It's a joke, Trevor.
It doesn't matter. I started, in my mind, I was fasting for the Lord right there. And I mean, I had the same prayer, Lord, please give me knowledge I don't have. I got some of the best grades on those tests. Now, that's not a formula for success, so don't try it, okay, necessarily. But I'm just saying, you know, the tests don't always reflect all that is you. In fact, rarely do they reflect all that is you. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. The Pharisees, with all the rules, were saying things like, if you don't walk beyond the barrier on the Sabbath, that's at the outside of the city, well, you're righteous. And if your donkey falls into a ditch, you can pull it out. But if your wife does, you can't on the Sabbath. And so, okay, you follow those two. Donkey in with the wife. I pull out Bessie. I live in husband. And I'm a righteous man. Okay?
Not a happy one.
Not a happy man, no. That's not one of the Beatitudes either, you know? But it was all rules. And they didn't reflect what was really inside people. So Jesus took it and flipped it to where everybody was saying, their questions were, what do I need to do to be righteous? And he completely flipped it to be for them to ask different kinds of questions. So they looked at this and they said, okay, you know who should know really what we have to do? Messiah. Jesus was the Messiah. So they brought these kind of questions to him. They sat down to hear him. And just like that, today, likewise, when you have people who get frustrated with all that they've been trying, it's fun for a while, but now it's empty, it hurts. Now they don't know where to turn. They don't feel like anybody really cares. And they start to seek something to fulfill. They're going to have real similar questions. What do I need to do? What do I need to be? How can I accomplish to get this fulfillment in my life? And maybe they're thinking, what do I need to do for the afterlife? But they might be more today asking, what do I need to do for right now, for next week, to get this gnawing emptiness out? So we get the same kinds of questions. Well, you've heard me say it many times. The answer is not rules. It's not religion. It's not rituals. The entire answer is in a relationship with Jesus Christ. In a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. So Jesus changed not only the answers to the questions, but he changed the questions themselves. Everybody was focused on the external, and in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus instead got them to look at the internal. So they could surpass the religiosity, the righteousness of the Pharisees. And they could become more and more the men and women that God intended each of us to be. So, we're in chapter 5 of Matthew. I'm going to start in verse 1. I'm reading from the NIV, which I'm just curious. How many of you guys, what versions do you guys use most of the time? ESV? How many guys have ESV? That's good enough. NIV? King James, straight up? Yeah. Bless God. Okay. New King James? All right. I'll flip over to the ESV then. How's that sound?
What about the message?
Message? Okay.
Preach it, Ron.
Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. Now, when a rabbi was going to teach, he would sit. So everybody else would sit around him to hear, and that was a sign when a rabbi sat that he was about to teach. Now, the question I see here is, who would he teach him? It's an interesting question, because first off it says, seeing the crowds, Jesus went up on the mountain. Now, if you're in the crowd, and you want to hear what Jesus has to say, what do you have to do? Go up the mountain. Okay, right there and then, you probably cut some folks out. I've done 4 mountains today already. That's it, Well, I want to, but I'm hungry. You want to go get something to eat instead? And so, this right there and then, you had some folks who didn't go, but the disciples did. They followed Jesus up there. So you've got a subset of the crowd, and it grows a little bit throughout the sermon. Well, it grows a lot throughout the sermon. But when he sat down, his disciples came to him. This, by the way, the Sermon on the Mount, I mentioned it's teaching us what God requires, what Jesus wants from his followers, the righteousness he desires. This is discipleship training right here. And it's amazing stuff. Now, but when I say that, I keep my glasses on, I haven't used them yet. This is not discipleship training for the people you're going to meet. It is not discipleship training for the people that you want to lead. This is discipleship training for you to be a disciple. It's kind of like whenever I talk about marriage, I say, we need to, again, flip the question for when people ask today. Oftentimes, wouldn't you say that most people are most ladies are looking for Mr. Right, and most guys are looking for Miss Right, or will settle for something close, right? You're looking for the right one. Well, the answer is not to find the right one. The answer is to be the right one. You work on you. You make sure you are the right one and you have something to offer to somebody. Well, discipleship training, I love it if you have a heart for discipleship, if you have the gift of discipleship and you want to disciple people. I used to think I really had it great, and then I met Tyler. And I realized he's much better at it than I have ever even thought of being. So I got to work at that. I got to pray about that. But it's not about discipling others. It's about the disciple you need to be. And that's who Jesus is talking to here. He's talking to you. So, Jesus started out the Sermon on the Mount with the Beatitudes. Blessed are, they each start with blessed are. Blessed are those who do not walk in the way of the fat guy going to a buffet. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. That would be an external thing. Blessed are. Happy many times over. Literally, happy. When you say blessed, the term blessed here means happy. Happy many times over. Extremely, exceedingly happy are those who experience each of these things. So, it's counterintuitive as we read through these. Because these are not Pharisaical righteousness concepts, but they are Old Testament concepts. Every one of them is rooted in the Old Testament. And they all come, you can only achieve each one, only through faith in Jesus Christ. So we're about to read 8 of them here. I'm going to read the first one, starting at the end of verse 1. Seeing the crowds, he went up the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, the poor in spirit. Who do you think the poor in spirit are? I have read this my entire life. Always. Blessed are the poor in spirit. And the word that always jumped out to me was what? Yeah. So I just did, to simplify it in my brain, blessed are the poor. No. That's not what it's saying. It's saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. The poor in spirit. Those who consciously know they have nothing of value to offer to God on their own. Spiritually. You cannot achieve anything, accomplish anything, do anything, get any kind of trophy that is going to impress God. So the poor in spirit are those who recognize this. Those who recognize that they have to consciously depend upon God. And I love it there. Caitlin prayed that at the beginning. They have to recognize that they recognize they consciously have to depend on God because they have nothing they can offer Him that He wants except for their dependence upon Him. Those are the poor in spirit. They are those who are spiritually bankrupt. You know what that is? When you recognize that you are spiritually bankrupt, when you recognize you have nothing to offer to God that is of value outside of Him, that is the beginning of repentance. Now, whenever I share the gospel, I share the most simplistic concept of the gospel I can quote. My little mind grasps around this. It's got two parts to it. I can keep my focus long enough to share two parts. Part one, repentance. I'm walking in this direction, and literally I realize, I don't want to go in this direction anymore. I don't want to feel empty. I don't want to feel disgusted with myself. I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to. And so I turn around, turn my back off that, and go in another direction. It's literally what repentance means. To turn and go in another direction. That is the first part of salvation. The first part of the gospel. The second part of the gospel is I turn to Jesus Christ. I don't just turn away from going in that direction and turn to go in another bad direction. Well, I turn toward Jesus and I say, Jesus, would you come into my life and be my Savior? That's it. You don't have to have fancy words. You don't have to use exactly the ones I just used, but in your heart, you have to want to have Jesus lead you and show you the way. And so the first part of it, the very first step, the very first, I was going to say achievement, but it's not achievement. First thing is the blessed are the poor in spirit, those who recognize they are spiritually bankrupt. It's the beginning of repentance. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Will somebody please read for me verse 4?
Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted.
Okay. Typically, when you think of mourning, what do you think about? Crying over an event. Somebody has died, perhaps. That is mourning. But it's not the word we're talking about here. This is not mourning over an event. This is mourning over a condition. This is because you've just realized you're spiritually bankrupt. That you are dependent entirely on God. You can only please God. But then you sit there and you look as you're considering yourself and you don't like what you see. Now, I'm not into self-loathing, and I'm a firm believer that God works in the details. That if you ever get this feeling of, I am worthless, nobody likes me, I'm just a horrible person, and blah, 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 and it's just a feeling, and you can't pinpoint specific reasons, that is not from God, that is from your enemy. That's from Satan. God is in the details. God will tell you exactly why you feel that way. You feel that way because you shoved that little old lady out of the way to get the less donut this morning. It looked like a church. Okay? He'll tell you this. So you can, why would he do that? Why does he tell you specifics? Yeah. He's all about bringing me back to him. Redeeming me. Right? So this, though, in the second, blessed is the second again, blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who say, over my condition, I am not happy about this. For they shall be comforted. Somebody read it, verse 5, please.
Got it. The gentle are blessed, for they will inherit the earth.
Yes, gentle. Anybody got a word other than gentle? Same thing. Concept, the gentle, the meek, okay? Meek does not equal weak. Okay? This is not saying the Casper milk toasts. Those who have no spine. No. The meek. Meekness is strength under control. So, I started martial arts in 1978. And I would go and I'd be around all these black belts from all over the country and all over the world, And I realized pretty quickly, the guys who were all about to flash and telling you all how good they were, you didn't have to worry about those guys. It was the guys who were quiet. Those were the guys who were going to roast you. Okay? They were the ones that, in fact, I was going to get a video and put it up here. Have you ever seen the video of the guy before the fight? He's doing all kinds of cartwheels and flips and everything else. Have you seen this one? And he's doing all kinds of cartwheels, trying to psych out his opponent. The the bell rings, and the guy goes, and knocks out Cargill Boy. And it's over like that, and the guy just turns and just walks out of the ring. You know, it's all over, that was it. The meek, strength under control. They shall inherit the earth. There's horses. Pretty new. I know you like it. So, there was always a saying among southern horse breeders, which is the meekest horse wins the race. The guy I work with owns a couple of racehorses. He breeds them and raises them up and everything else. And he says the meekest horse wins the race because a meek horse is one that is under control and one that has been trained. And it's listened to the trainer and it's taken that to heart. Whereas one that's still kind of wild. So, like I said, this is an actual saying. The meekest horse wins the race. And then when it says here, they shall inherit the earth. Now, this is exciting. Who's Jesus talking to here? Us, yes, but at this time, who's sitting there on the ground in front of him? The disciples. What were they? Who were they? Fishermen, tax collectors, shepherds. What would you say, Rob? Zealots. These are folks who just kind of, they're not in society the guys who are considered to be the most valuable. And now Jesus is pointing to the to the future times and the coming kingdom of God on earth and saying, you shall be those who inherit the earth. He's giving hope. He's giving purpose. He's giving a reason for faith. The beginning of it here. So let's summarize so far. In our 3 Beatitudes we've looked at so far. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who recognize their spiritual bankruptcy. 2, blessed are those who mourn. They sorrow over their condition. 3, blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who respond to training. And we come to verse 6. Somebody read verse 6, please.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. You ever hear a question by a skeptic about if God really is there, why does he allow evil to exist in the world? You ever hear this?
Yeah.
Okay. How about, again, let's flip that exactly like Jesus flipped it here. That's not the question. The question is, why is there evil inside of you? And how are you going to deal with that? Because it begins with you. It begins with you taking care of that. You don't want to be righteous and starved, I guess that's the way to put it. We're talking about evil inside of you. It's an internal focus. It's a hunger and a thirst for righteousness, to desire the things of God. If you desire the things of God, then you will deal with and take care of whatever evil is inside of you. Because God will do that for you. Going back to the first beatitude. Somebody, if you would, read verse 7.
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy.
I love this one. You know, I often find myself saying things my dad said. Do you know how it scares you the first time you do it? My dad had all kinds of sayings. He just, he was all about it. And one of the ones that he'd say when he, hit his finger with a hammer or something like that, or something wouldn't go right, you drop a tool down the middle, and the center point of the car engine where you can't get to it, right? And his exclamation would always be, "Son of a mother." And I remember, okay, that's okay, I can say it. Okay, that's all right. Well, I never picked up on that. That was not the exclamation I used, But I remember the very first time that I hit my thumb with a hammer, I went, "Oh, son of a mother!" Where'd that come from? Where'd it come from? Yeah, I'd heard it so many times that, likewise when we play cards, he'd say things like, I've got a hand like a foot, which meant it's stuck. Okay? I say that. I say lots of things my dad said. You know, I'm like the stupid commercials where you're becoming your father. Right? You're life insurance, and all of a sudden you're going, hey! Right? Stop. Shut it down. But here's the thing. As a Christian, as a member of the kingdom of God, you should be reflecting the King. Your heart should reflect His heart. God has given you mercy. He's given you grace, given you things that you don't deserve, but He's given you mercy and not giving you what you do deserve. He created the way that you could get out of your lost condition and get to Him. So as He has given us mercy, what are we supposed to reflect? Mercy. And I love this one. What we have received, we are to give. Somebody would read verse 8.
Blessed are the pure in heart, they will see God.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. How do you know if something is pure or clean? Okay. What would you say is the definition of pure? Untainted. How about clean? What's the definition of clean? Yeah. Absence of filth. Right? You measure clean because there's no filth. You measure pure because there's no impurities, no taintedness. So, this comes to being pure in heart from being of single purpose. You are seeking God. You are seeking to serve God. You are not being distracted. You're not being corrupted. That is purity of purpose. Your heart desires to serve God. You don't always achieve it. You don't always do the right thing. But in your heart, you desire to serve God. Pure in heart. You know what I love about this one right here? Verse 8. Being pure of heart. Pure in heart is a natural byproduct of the other ones we just talked about. It's a natural byproduct of being poor in spirit, recognizing that you're spiritually bankrupt. It's a natural byproduct of then becoming sorrowful for that condition. And of being strength under control, trained, accepting training from the Master. It's a spiritual byproduct of hungering and thirsting for righteousness. You know what I used to call this when we had munchkins that I were running around the house? Internalizing. It was not enough to get kids to hear the Bible. Yes, it's great. Yes, that is what we want to do. But you want to have them internalize it. It's not a case of where, and I've heard this example before. If you've got two kids and they're in different beds and they're in the same room, and you say, okay, guys, do not get out of bed again. Okay. And so the older one's laying over here, the younger one's laying here, suddenly something falls off the shelf above the younger one, hits him on the head, and he starts to cry. And the older one gets out of bed and comes over to care for the younger. Now, are you going to punish the older one for getting out of bed when you said don't go to bed? Because they have internalized the concepts you've taught about caring for others. That's what we're talking about here. That's what hungering and thirsting for righteousness is. Righteousness is internalizing it, getting it into you. And then, merciful, you're living out what God is teaching you. You're showing what He has showed you. What's the outcome of all this, according to verse 8? For they shall see God. Verse 9, somebody read that, please.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
All right, so the concept of peace, the Jewish concept of peace, was not just absence of conflict. You know, I remember as a little kid, again, always praying every night, God, please bring world peace. You know, I was working my way up from Miss America, evidently, all right? But I would always pray that, because I heard that's what you're supposed to pray. Pray for world peace. What I know, there'll be a guy, an athlete later on, called Meta World Peace, but never mind. That's something else. I'll explain it now. It's not, but in my mind, it was, okay, if there's no fighting going on anywhere in the world, there's no wars going on anywhere in the world, is that peace in the world? In my feeble little mind, that was an absence of conflict, that was peace. But that's not the Jewish concept of peace. The Jewish concept of peace is everything is exactly as it should be. You have a calm that passes understanding. Again, we're talking internal stuff, not external. And so, a peacemaker, to be a true peacemaker, you first have to have that peace. An internal and a spiritual peace. That does not come from you going up on a mountain, crossing your legs and going. It doesn't come from these different ways of listening to ocean waves at night on a tape. It doesn't come from all these external sources. It comes from God and God alone. That is how you get that peace. And so the peacemakers are not the power brokers. The peacemakers are those who are people lovers. So blessed are the peacemakers, those who have done all these others. These are one building on top of another of all these beatitudes. For they shall be called sons of God. And let's close it out. Somebody, if you would, please read verses 10 through 12.
Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
So, I noticed something this past Sunday. We went out to lunch, went to Schlotsky's. I recommend it, we haven't been there lately. And we're there, and it struck me, most Alabama fans I know, every piece of clothing they own has an A on it. Or it's crimson. Look, Daniel, what team do you go after, right?
The team is around.
No, it's good. That's fine. That's fine. But Sunday I noticed I had saw more Auburn shirts than I have seen out and about since last year. Because Auburn fans, and I'm one, tend to be, we put our stuff in the closet and we don't bring it out until we win.
Maybe in the closet a long time ago.
So, back in the 80s, you joke, but back in the 80s, I remember I went down to Auburn, we were just visiting some friends down there. We were playing football out in the field. I did a diving catch, and I had people going, man, do you want to try out for the team? We need you bad. I mean, you could walk on and get on the team. Okay? 1980s, we couldn't buy a win for most of the time. We were playing girls' schools and losing.
Oh, we had Bo Jackson.
Well, that Bo was a different era. I'm talking about prior to Bo. Pre-Bo. So we experienced persecution. That's where we learned to hide our courage and blew away until we won. Right? This is not talking about blessed are those who are persecuted. Just like earlier I said, I read this, blessed are the poor. No, it's not just the poor. It's the poor in spirit. It's not just the persecuted. It's not just the downtrodden. That's not the qualification that gets you blessed. That gets you to be happy many times over. And it says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It's blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for God's sake, for following after God, only for persecution because of Him. And I got to mention here, so when I was a little kid, and this is my second time today to talk about this, so let me just lay it on my heart a lot. I know this is going to be hard for you guys to believe. I was obnoxious.
Wow.
I know. You know, when I was and what I remember as a little kid in school, I couldn't figure out why a lot of kids didn't like me. Because I thought to myself, if I could show them how superior I am to them, they would then like me. So the kid next to me would go, I said, what did you get on your test? No, and they go, I got a 94. And you go, 98. But I figured, okay, they go, wow, he's cool. I want to be like him. He's really good at spelling. Right? I was persecuted and not liked, not because of, I was obnoxious. Likewise, many of us as Christians, they sit there and go, I've got a great pedigree. I've got a good get out of hell free card. I was raised in the church. I've never sinned, done anything really major, not like most of you. And I don't really say it, but it's in the back of my mind, and somehow it tends to come out. So you know what happens to people like that? People don't like them. And they're persecuted. And they go, yeah, it's because I'm a Christian. No, you're obnoxious. Okay? We're not talking about being persecuted because you're obnoxious. We're talking about you're being persecuted because you follow the King. Because you adhere to Him. You followed all the other Beatitudes up to this point, building one on top of another. You've been showing mercy because you were shown mercy. Pure in heart, peacemaker. And then you're going to be persecuted strictly because. Because think about this. If an enemy of the king, your king, persecuted you because you were a follower of the king, you were a servant of the king, and he was an enemy of your king, would that make sense? I suggest this is him. Okay. Well, it's intuitive. Think back. Lord of the Rings. How many of you have seen any of the Lord of the Rings? Who knows who Rufe was? Who was he? What did he? He was the guy who would sit there next to the king of Rohan, right over Rohan, right? And he would whisper in his ear, they're here to steal your horses. They're trying to get to the buffet. Whatever it was. And he was actually working for somebody else. And he was betraying his own people. Or in one of the other ones, the Kings, which episode it was, Lake Town, right? You had, I love this guy's name, Alfred Lickspill. You remember him as the guy who dressed as a woman to try to escape during the attack on Lake Town, right? He was part of the town. He was one of the townspeople. He'd grown up there, but he betrayed them. And immediately with these characters, what do you feel toward them in the movie? You don't like them, right? Oh yeah, they're against the good guy and they betray their people. How about Judas? Maybe a little more obvious. Kind of the same thing. Betrayed. So it's intuitive. We don't like those who betray. That's been built into us. God says here, Jesus said here, it's in red in my version, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. If you're a servant of the king, you should expect enemies of your king to not buy into what you're doing. That's what he's saying. Again, what is he preparing the folks for? To be disciples. This is the beginning of the sermon. So, let me summarize and close it out. Jesus brought radical new way of thinking. We've grown up here in America, so it may not seem that strange to us. But he was telling the folks, stop looking at the external. Focus on the internal. Stop looking at doing stuff just to pass the test, just to meet the standard that somebody has set. But instead, be right one. And so as we go through the Sermon on the Mount, we're going to get deep into some stuff. But it's all about becoming the person God intended you to be. It's all about internal change for eternal purpose. I'm excited. As we start talking about the different things later on, salt and light, anger, loving your enemies, it all comes out of not actions, but attitudes. And again, it comes from one thing. Not rules, not religion, not rituals. Relationship. And you keep that always right in your mind. That you're in a relationship with Jesus Christ. That your decisions, your choices are just like I'm in a relationship with Valerie. She's my wife. I don't do certain things because of our relationship. I stopped dating a couple months back at least. We just had our 30th anniversary last year. 2 years ago. No, it was last year. It was last year. We're good. Yeah. It was last year. Okay? It's a relationship. I make decisions on what I do based on that relationship. Not because there are rules about it. That's the same way it is to walk with Jesus. Let's pray. God, I just praise you. You're worthy of all our praise, regardless of what you do for us that we recognize. Because of who you are. And I thank you. Thank you for this word you've given us. I thank you for you so clearly want to convey to us how to be your disciples. How to be the men and women you're supposed to be. How to be blessed. Happy, happy many times over. And how to have an impact for you and serve you well. And Lord, I pray that be the focus for each one of us. That every single day we would grow more and more in our desire to serve you well. It would drive our actions. It would drive our attitudes. And it would start right now. Lord, tonight, tomorrow, everything we do, I pray that if we start to do anything that is going to reflect poorly on you, that's going to hinder our walk with you, that's going to cause us to take a step backward, I pray that you would just help us, the Holy Spirit, that we would recognize it and then give us the strength, the courage, your strength, your courage to choose the right path. And may we become more and more aware of you as we would see how you work, where you work, and who it is you love, and how you love them. Thank you for all this, and I pray each of these folks here that you would bless them mightily, that their lives would be fulfilled. And many of them right now